Okie dokie.
Morning.
Morning. Everybody got here without snow. Maybe they'll be wrong.
I think it's coming.
Oh, maybe
Yeah,
not.
I wasn't so sure about the chair, whether she'd make it in.
Well, I wasn't so sure about the chair either. But that's why I figured we've got time. I think we have time. So if it was last week, wouldn't have happened. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. All right, it's 10 o'clock. So at this time, we will call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners informal session for February 11th, 2021. And Commissioner Kula, would you lead us please in the pledge?
Happily. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before we get started, I just want to call out our, sorry, I've got some issues here. It's doing it again. I apologize. In any event, I just want to say that our Public Works Department, the Road Warriors, when these weather events happen, they're out 4 o'clock in the morning and they're working around the clock. So I just want to say that we appreciate the work that they do. We don't always see them because they're up before we are, but thanks to them and to Mark Lago for leading them. And Commissioner Kula for being invested in that department. So I'm having some issues with my Zoom, but we'll soldier on. So we'll move on to the calendar session. Do we have anything that is in addition to our normal routine scheduled joint appearances?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to public comment. We did receive public comments, and some are related to agenda items that I appreciate very much and want to address. But at this time, we have noted that those comments have come in to the commissioners. On to a work session, item E, we have none. Department updates, we have none. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying,
Christian Scott.
Christian, yes.
All right, Madam Chair, if I could just make one clarification. The last item on the consent agenda is the purchase and sale agreement between the county and Carol Glover for the repurchase of her property. I'm sorry, never mind. That's under other business, my mistake. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. On to item I, which is other business. Old business, we have none. Other business, add-ons, and non-consent items. This is I-1. This is the consideration of approval of service element prior authorization, SEPA unit number 412-33624, agreement number 157846 between Yamhill County Health and Human Services and the Oregon Department of Human Services per Board Order 19-221. This is for the financing of community developmental disability services in the amount of $15 million retroactive to July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. And this just basically is, this is a large amount. It's passed through. It's money that goes to the providers for medically fragile, high medical needs in-home services. And there was a 5% rate increase per the Legislative Emergency Board. So do we have any questions about that? It's typically what we do on a regular basis. It's passed through money through the county to the providers. Okay, do we have a motion?
I have no questions.
No, a motion to approve?
Chair, I move that we approve item I-1.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to item I-2, the consideration of approval of a personal services contract between Yamhill County and Lisa Mayfield for court mediation services in the amount of $85 an hour, not to exceed 5 hours per original case filing, retroactive to February 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. And do we have any questions about this agenda item? I think Christian was very clear in explaining a little bit about where this funding comes from, and that is through the share of court-issued citation fee. So I would move approval of item I-2. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Motion passes. On to item I-3, the consideration of approval of a memorandum of agreement between Yamhill County and Oregon Health and Science University, OHSU, for the Nutrition Oregon campaign in the amount of $10,000 effective February 11th, 2021, with automatic renewal for succeeding fiscal years. This is a project through the Moore Institute, and I'm really excited to see that we have folks that are very invested in this, and Lindsay Manfred has made sure that this happened. And so it's basically going to partly fund somebody to pull all this together so we can really make a commitment in the community to focus on nutrition, as we know sometimes the basis of a lot of the serious health concerns that we have. So I'm excited to see that we're actually at this point going to move in that direction. So do we have a motion to approve?
I would move that we approve. I don't have the item number because I'm switching back and forth,
That's
but
okay.
the $10,000, yeah, item I-3, And I'm also very excited, thank you, Chair, for your work on this as well.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to item I4, consideration of approval of the employment of Jason. Am I pronouncing his name right, Ken? Is it Foos or Fuss? Foos. Okay, we have a new Yamhill County surveyor, and he is regular full-time range 26, step 6, effective March 9th, 2021. And he comes with not only glowing recommendations, but a very substantial resume. So we're glad to have him, and hopefully we can get to meet him even virtually soon. So we have a motion to approve the approval of the employment of our new surveyor.
Chair, I make a motion that we approve item I4. And
Okay,
Jason's actually coming from my home state of Arizona, it looks like. So that's awesome.
I saw that. I saw that. He's got a lot to get used to.
Yep.
Otherwise, I wonder if he's here now. We have a motion to approve item I4. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And I just want to note that this is a really momentous thing to now have a full-time surveyor and our engineering project manager, because this really is the changing of the guard from our wondrous Bill Gilley.
So as long as I've been here, Bill Gilley has been trying to retire, and we just never let him. So I'm glad we finally untethered him. But he has quite a history of institutional knowledge here. So yes, thank you. So we will move on to item I5, which is the discussion of submitting board testimony in opposition to SB 254. And I just wanted to bring this to our attention. We know that this is a bill that would basically limit parents' rights to make individual medical plans for vaccinations, and it limits parents' rights to choose those medical treatments under the guise of protecting children from infectious diseases. And remember last year when House Bill 3063 was up for discussion, this was such a bipartisan effort to bring attention to this issue. And I was looking at some of the testimony from the last effort. This is taking away the last exemption for parents on vaccination so that they could decide what schedule they wanted, perhaps less aggressive schedule. And perhaps they have a vaccine injured sibling. They couldn't even factor that into a medical exemption. So this basically, Senate Bill 254 removes the ability of the parent to decline required immunizations against these certain diseases. One of the comments made by, let's see.
I was just thinking about that one.
I'm sorry.
I was just thinking about that one. So go ahead, please go.
We had as I said, we had bipartisan opposition to the last iteration of this, removing the restrictions or the medical exemption. And one of the Democratic lawmakers who voted against the last bill said that this is overreach, and it allows students and parents of the necessary flexibility to accommodate complicated health and education considerations. This is Democratic State Representative Susan McLean, a teacher for over 40 years, voted against the anti-exemption bill when it was 3063. There were hordes of people down at the Capitol who said, we want to be able to retain the ability to make medical decisions for our children. So that is why I would recommend, and I'm hoping that we can have a unanimous approval of opposition to Senate Bill 254 in this legislative session. So I'll just open that up for discussion, commissioners.
I'm happy to go first. Commissioner Berschauer, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure, but I can wait till.
Okay, yes. I support, or let me rephrase that. I think it would be a good idea to submit a letter. I need to make sure that I get this right? You know, there's the opposites, the negatives and the positives to oppose SB 254. Since there isn't a document yet, or at least I didn't see one in the packet when I was looking, or like a letter of testimony. Can we see that before it goes out the door?
So what I was thinking in terms of not necessarily a letter, but that we would on OLIS under testimony simply submit that the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners submits testimony in opposition to or has unanimously supported opposition to Senate Bill 254. So there isn't a letter, since we know that really, because public comment is limited in person, people are submitting stuff. And we have to be honest, we know they're not reading it all. But if they just see that one line and it's short and sweet. So that's my recommendation. I do have a letter I could submit, but I'd rather just make it easy for the folks at the legislature who are looking at this. Commissioner Bershauer?
Oh, Chair, I just want to
Yes,
follow up.
sorry,
You may,
go
no, that makes sense. With that, like when you look at OLIS and you see that line of like the 10 words or whatever, I think that's totally reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll also make sure that I keep it as short as possible, only those few words that let folks know that the vote was taken. So thank you for that. Commissioner Bershauer.
Thank you, Chair. I do support submitting testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 254. This issue in particular, I have to admit, was not something that I was very well educated on, especially up to a couple years ago when the previous bill came forward. I think it was 3063. And there was a massive groundswell of parents coming down to the Capitol, fighting for a seat at the table with that bill and maintaining control over their decisions that they make about their children. It was pretty eye-opening, and I've learned a lot since then. I've always vaccinated my son. And now that I have 3 children, they are all on different vaccine schedules. But I think what scares me the most about this bill, other than the premise that we're removing parental rights, is that it wouldn't allow you to choose the schedule that you want, even if you choose to vaccinate your children. It would essentially remove that power, that exemption of even being able to choose the schedule. That's where I'm at with my son personally. And I received a letter from the state recently that was terrifying. It's very one-sided. The message is coming from the state about, where a parent's decision falls into this issue. And so, just on a basic level, anything that starts with removing the rights of parents is not something I'm probably going to support. But I think that this issue is much more nuanced than this sort of, media terms of anti-vaxxer and, this and that. It's much more nuanced. And I think that at the end of the day, parents need to be in charge of this decision, and it shouldn't affect, whether or not their child gets to go to public school or not. So I do support opposing this bill.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kula.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bershauer, for noting that sometimes these things are a lot more nuanced than maybe people want them to be. But that's the only comment. I just wanted to note that I think it's really important, and I appreciate that.
And I thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate both of you pointing that out, because the thing that really, when you have both sides of the political spectrum coming together on one issue, I think we've all used the word unprecedented in this issue, that this is not a left, right, Republican, Democrat. This is parents' rights and medical freedom I hate to use that term because it's got connotations of various components. But when you look at the vaccination rate in Oregon, it's higher than 95%. And when a parent chooses to perhaps delay or stagger the administration of vaccines, that actually constitutes someone who is not vaccinated. So while the state says doesn't count a child who is not fully vaccinated, maybe missing 1 or 2, that child is counted as not having been vaccinated, which is a little bit, talk about nuanced. That child is vaccinated, but not to the degree that the state mandated schedule. The other thing about this bill, which really is disturbing, is that it actually not only deals with public schools, but it deals with parents who have children in private schools and says that they cannot that they have to agree to this or not go to the private schools, and it extends to after-school programs. A lot of overreach in this bill, and when you have parents, and I really wasn't super up to speed on this until I saw vaccine-injured children. And when you see vaccine-injured children and you see the devastation it causes to families, they really have to have a little bit of autonomy when it comes to making medical decisions. So I'm in great support of issuing opposition to Senate Bill 254, removing the medical exemption, or removing the non-medical exemption for vaccines. So I'll move approval of
Chair,
item.
just
Yes.
one moment. County Administrator had one comment he wanted to.
I was just going to, so that way we can make sure it's accurately reflected in the minutes and the record. And because there's not a letter accompanying this that the board's acting on, write up, is maybe restating the motion and what the wording is, what the testimony will be. I just think it'll create, it'll more clearly document what the action is that the board's taking, and just wanted to make that recommendation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So it needs to be clarified. So the motion I would make is that the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners submits a statement of opposition to Senate Bill 254. And the statement is simply that the board voted to oppose Senate Bill 254. That's all it's going to say on OLIS, on the state legislature website. So any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. On to item I5, which is discussion of submitting board testimony in opposition to, where are we? Item 6, to Senate Bill 663 and House Bill 2333. We received some public comment regarding Senate Bill 663, and this is from Joni Zimmerman. And I have to say, and I sent her an email saying that she made some very good points about concerns regarding this bill. And so what I would like to do is ask the board if we can pull that discussion from today and think about it, take a look. I've reached out to people involved with this bill and asked for more clarification. There are some areas of concern, but to me, that there are some issues addressed here which are very important, having to do with domestic violence and reporting from DHS. So I think if we pull it, maybe discuss it next week. Is that?
Chair, I was going to request that. So because I saw those that comments and then I read it and I was like, I don't know if I feel comfortable making a statement either way yet.
I agree.
And I'm comfortable with the other one, but we'll get to that.
Okay, thank you. So do we need a motion, Ken, to remove that, or just basically bring it back next week and maybe just have more discussion? And I thank Joni Zimmerman for bringing those, articulating those concerns. So the next one is House Bill 2333. This one is near and dear to my heart. I'm sorry to say, for years this has to do with psychiatric drugging, psychotropic drugs of children. House Bill 2333 directs the Department of Human Services to report information regarding prescription use of psychotropic medications to children in foster care. Now, the reason this is an issue is because, according to the Government Accounting Office, Oregon is one of 5 states that has massive overprescribing of children in foster care on psychiatric drugs, that these kids received 5 or more at the same time. I have personal experience with this in children that I have been advocating for on a personal level, and to see the number of psychiatric drugs and how it impacts their behavior. And then we blame them when they're just basically responding to the effects of these very powerful drugs. So what this does is it asks for information, it asks for reporting, and I spent a couple of years trying to get numbers of kids in our county, just in our county, who were on 1 or more psychiatric drugs. And I was told for months, this information doesn't exist. We don't have it. Nobody has it. Someone else has it. And I thought, isn't that something we should be collecting? We have a bunch of kids who are being prescribed these drugs. Shouldn't we know so whether or not we can address it as a problem. So any further discussion? Commissioner Cooley, you said you had looked at this and favorably.
Yes, and of course I have seen it from previous iterations, but yes, I would support, again, a real simple line if we can, just to when scanning it, you can see it, you don't have to click on it.
Absolutely, and that's all it will be. Commissioner Bershauer?
Chair, I think for folks watching, it's we should probably talk about what it actually, it's an accountability piece. It's that this should be documented. It should be when these are being administered, these kinds of drugs are being administered, the parents should be notified, or whoever the caregivers are should be notified, that kind of thing. So it's more of an accountability piece. And so, I think given what's happened in our foster care system in the past several years, I think any bit of additional accountability is a good thing. So I support submitting a letter of support for House Bill 23333.
And now, yes, and basically just as asking the Department of DHS to develop a rule of procedures for the use of them. In other words, when are they indicated, and that there is a sort of a reporting system to be able to keep track of how many kids are on what. So we have a motion to send a statement of support for House Bill 2333 and submit that to OLIS. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, commissioners. This is a bill I think will really be helpful.
And Chair, before we move on to the next item, I just wanted to note that somebody asked me if we can try to put either a link in the agenda packet or the the text of the as it currently is. The tricky thing I know is that the text changes as things get amended. But
thank you for that, and that's duly noted. And I apologize for not getting the links in there. As you know, these are moving targets, but I will do that going forward. Thank you for that, Commissioner.
Totally, I understand. It is really a moving target.
Thank you. On to item I7, the consideration of authorizing the execution of a real estate purchase and sale agreement between Yamhill County and Carol Glover for the sale of real property tax lot R240901303 and all improvements thereon, if any, in the amount of not less than $80,812. Tentative closing date 2/26/21. Christian, this has been on your desk for a while.
Yeah, fortunately, we've come to agreement. I just wanted to point out that there are a couple of documents at the end of this in the agenda that are a little bit confusing, and we're going to be clarifying what is going to constitute Exhibit A and Exhibit B after the board acts today. The legal description that's in the packet, fortunately, is accurate, and the maps are identifying the correct parcel of property, but they're not the correct versions of those that we would like to see in the final document. So I'm just pointing out that we'd like to correct those, clean those up. I'll be working with the buyer's attorney to make sure that there's no disagreement or confusion among the parties. So we should have an Exhibit A, which will be the legal description. Exhibit B will be a map, and Exhibit C will be some warnings that are standard when we are transferring these tax foreclosed properties.
Thank you, Christian. So should the motion be amended in any way other than what's on the agenda? Or is this
I mean,
suffice?
if so, I would just say, yeah, with the exhibits to be corrected and incorporated into the final document by County Council.
All right, do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, easy enough. All right, we have a motion to approve item I7. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. You've sweated over that one. I know. Appreciate it. Public hearings, we have none. Announcements, commissioners. We'll start with you, Commissioner Kula.
I was just going for my unmute button. And Commissioner Bershauer, you got to have the honor of approving that one, but you didn't have to sit through or engage in the extensive discussions about this, but I'm glad you're here for it. So
I've heard about it. I got the lowdown.
Good. I'm glad. Thanks, Christian. Just short, we've got the city of McMinnville has their State of the City address at 5 o'clock this evening. I'll be, quote unquote, in attendance. So I'm excited to see that. They always do a really good job with it. Road Improvement Advisory Committee is tonight. Again, it's all virtual. If folks can't attend, there's a way to, if you can't Zoom in, you can call in. And I really encourage people to join that. The Road Improvement Advisory Committee has a lot of really good, lots of longtime people on it, really good energy and really cooperative. So I think it's a great example of an advisory committee. And along those lines, somebody took the time to really update our advisory committee list on the website. So thank you to whoever did that. It's great to see so many opportunities for people to volunteer with our county government. The one thing I wanted to ask about was, I know that we have a budget committee opening as somebody is shifting chairs, as it were, hint at Commissioner Bershauer. So I look forward to seeing qualified applicants for that. I know we don't have it listed yet, but hopefully we can have that conversation at some point. And then that's it for me, I think.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Ken, do we have that posted, or did we decide what our plan was on that?
This was something that I had hoped to discuss with the board, but if the board would like to, we can get it posted today. And is there a certain time frame? I mean, because obviously we're going to have budget committee meetings in the first week of May. So ideally, we'd want to have a selection made by at least April 1st. So if there's a prescribed time that you want to have it open and then have it come before you, if there's something in particular, otherwise we'll get it announced and we'll start gathering applications and so then the board can take a look at the applications and make a decision.
Commissioner Kula, what's the recommendation on the time frame on this? I know last time we were down to the wire. We really waited till the 11th hour, but in terms of posting, Ken, what do we typically do? Is it a month? And if we did a month, if we did 30 days, would that be sufficient?
I believe it would be. A month. We can do that.
That should give us time to, I'm looking at the date on my computer. That should give us plenty of time to have somebody identified, getting prepped, getting that introduction to the budget by the 1st of April. So
if we had our applications and then we're able to review those and make a determination, we would still, that would give us enough time. So yes, let's go ahead and get that out there. How do we typically do that? We put it on the website and we put it in the newspaper, social media. How are we doing it?
We can do an ad if the board would like to.
I was going to say, hey, we've switched that role from Commissioner Olson to Commissioner Sterrett in this case.
What's that?
Hey, let's put this in the paper.
Oh, but no, I wasn't advocating for that. I was asking how we typically did it. Because I know we've had, so for instance, with planning and all these other, how do we do that? How have we done it?
Historically, for all of our committees, we post it on the website and we have information on every agenda that identifies that, hey, we may have openings on, you'll see it at the under K1, you'll see information on county advisory committee vacancies, and there's a link to the website. And so we'll have it posted on the website. And I know we've had discussions in the past about whether or not we want to do some periodic announcements in the paper, or if we want to do that. It's not something we've done historically with our advisory committees, but they're, the budget committee, it is one that we typically don't have a lot of vacancies for that, for those, on the way the terms. And so it would make sense to me that we could run an ad. I could work with and get some quotes on that, about posting some ads. And that's both maybe even an announcement of some of the other openings that we have on other committees, but then really the highlight is the budget committee.
So that makes sense. I'm wondering if we can do this without incurring significant cost. Is there a place in the paper that just has announcements or openings types of things? I'm not familiar with it.
And it's been a while since I've looked at it, and so, but I do recall that there has, that they do some general announcements, and they'll do some under their kind of their government pages, to where they say that, the Parks Board typically meets on this time. Planning Commission, Planning Commission is a little bit different. There's all kinds of public notices. So there's that general announcement about committees and formal sessions and when they occur. I'd be happy to explore on, I've seen other jurisdictions that actually run ads in the News Register for vacancy announcements, much like we do for job recruitments.
Well, maybe we can see if we can submit this as a notice under the government section, and also keep in mind that we have the Newburgh paper as well. So do that. And if we can do this without incurring any cost, I'd be all for that.
Chair,
Yes.
I would request that we do post this and open it up really quickly, because I feel like if we're going to give people a month to respond, we're pushing middle of March, and then maybe give us a couple weeks to go through all the applications and make the decision. And then I appreciated having the binder and the information a good month beforehand, so that I could just be up to speed when I walked into the discussions. So I'm hoping we can afford the same, courtesy to the incoming budget committee member.
Well taken. So yeah, if Commissioner Kula.
I just want to make sure, before we put out an announcement, is it just Commissioner Bershauer's position that's open? Okay. It's because it's a year at a time, I forget.
Right. So yeah. So Ken, if we can get an announcement in both papers, and maybe even the Sheridan paper as well, just an announcement, that would be great. Let's not forget the West Valley, and let's see if we can get some folks to generate some interest. So anything else, Commissioner Kula? Were you?
No, I'm good. That was it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Bershauer.
Thank you, Chair. Announcements, I have a couple. I was on the county chair call, filling in for Chair Sterrett yesterday with the governor. There's a lot of concern, as nobody's surprised, but there's a lot of concern about the metrics and the risk levels per county. A lot of frustration from some of the county commissioners yesterday. Crook County, Judge Crawford was on, and he expressed his frustration that they were only one case over moving from extreme to high risk, and that one case is holding them back. And if you've been out to Crook County, they don't have a huge supply of restaurants or choice options for restaurants. So there's about 2 people that own the majority of the restaurant chains, and they've been closed for almost a year. And so he was expressing urgency to the governor, that these decisions are really having an immediate impact, and threatening over 100 jobs just on one of those restaurant chains there. And several others, Josephine County also expressed the same frustration. I did so as well to the governor. You guys have probably heard from restaurant owners. I certainly did on Tuesday morning when it was clear that we were not going to move down. And to say that folks are frantic is probably an understatement. And I think a lot of people just feel frustration because Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties are now open under high risk levels, which means they can have indoor dining. So residents from Yamaha County could conceivably get in their car and drive 10 minutes north, and there you go, and you can have dinner in a restaurant inside. So why is it that, you know, we're allowing folks to patron those businesses and not our own? And I think one of the frustrations that came through as well is that there's discussion about how to keep counties from sort of you know, moving back and forth if their case counts increase. And so, you know, if they are in high risk and in the next 2 weeks they just happen to be over the threshold, how do you keep them from bouncing back and forth? And the idea that's being discussed is that there could be a buffer of about 50 to 100 cases where, you know, you have a buffer. If you're in high level and you happen to move up a little bit, you won't necessarily be automatically bumped back down. But again, that entire idea undermines the premise of who stays in extreme and who stays in high. And I was pretty shocked and disheartened to hear the governor say, quote, "There are no flexibility in these metrics," unquote. And she said that to Judge Crawford. One case is keeping them from high level. So a lot of frustration was communicated. There was also question about the schools being open, and I brought up the equity piece. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of kids who just have not seen the inside of a classroom for over a year now. And yet we have schools who are now open full time. A lot of them are private schools. And so there's an equity issue there. The governor did offer to call our superintendents throughout the county and express urgency that, you know, through safe precautions, we urge you to open. And so I'm going to take her up on that. And she also did say that there is potentially more money coming for businesses, for restaurants and such. So that's something to keep on our radar. She did mention that there's more money coming. So I would just say, you know, pray for our businesses. I don't know what else to do. I've asked County Council Christian to look into if there's any way, legal option that we have to you know, somehow open up these industries. I know the Restaurant and Lodging Association is also looking at that as well, because they've been disproportionately hammered by these metrics. So we're going to keep pushing for you guys if you're watching. And my message to the governor yesterday was one of urgency, that we don't have another 2 weeks. A lot of us don't have another 2 weeks. So it's urgent. This issue is urgent and it needs to stay at the forefront of their agenda. My second item is that we unfortunately, as you know, lost a young boy a couple weeks ago now, I think it was, in a house fire up in Yamhill, near Yamhill. And a lot of the first responders that were on the scene to that fire are really struggling with what they saw. So just keep them in your prayers. And it's Valentine's Day weekend, so I just wanted to say happy Valentine's Day, and I wore my heart sweatshirt today. So hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day with your Valentine.
You're muted, Chair. Yes, I got to say it.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bershauer. I appreciate those
I
words.
thought you were going to say, Lindsay, you were muted the whole time. Like, oh.
I like to think that Chair Sterrett and I would have said something to you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I wanted to, at this point, we do have an update on the resolution that we passed, which, whether it's symbolic or not, would perhaps make it a little bit easier for businesses who are getting some of these OSHA citations, and we're seeing some of that in our county. So maybe you can, Christian, bring us up to speed, because the court validation piece of this resolution, which basically needs to happen before this resolution can have any teeth.
Yeah, and this speaks a little bit to Commissioner Bershauer's comment as well. That is one thing that we have been able to do and are continuing to endeavor to do. Unfortunately, We had our county council conference call yesterday. There was no sort of eureka moment or idea that anybody really presented as to how to deal with the challenge around the metrics and moving from extreme to high. So we'll continue to think about that. Unfortunately, I don't know that there is much more that we can do in that area. But speaking to the resolution, the 10-day window closed earlier this week. We're now waiting to hear from the courts as to what the next steps will be, whether it's going to be filing a default motion and a motion for a default judgment, or if the judge is going to ask us to schedule a hearing. So we have not heard from the court yet today. I'm not sure if we'll hear from them this week. We'll follow up if we haven't by next week. As you know, Todd's taking some well-earned FET. He's on his way through the midst of this crazy weather, driving back to Missouri. I think I might have mentioned to you, he was feeling really confident though, because he had gotten the 275,000 mile checkup on his car. So with that checkup, he was feeling really confident. So I'm not sure if there is a hearing scheduled, if it will happen while he's out or not. It is possible, and he has indicated he would make himself available if that fits the court's schedule, because these hearings at the moment are being held virtually. So as far as we know so far, there was no one who intervened in opposition to the petition. So it will really come down to what additional information the judge feels they need to hear in order to make their decision. So we'll hopefully have more information about that in the next few days.
Thank you, Kristen. And also,
Sure.
I was on a call with Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association and a number of county commissioners. And again, as Commissioner Berschauer said, the frustration is they're at the 11th hour. And what they're looking at is a more aggressive approach where they're going to be looping in legislators and saying, hey, listen, you guys have been on the sidelines throughout this whole process, and the governor has been ruling by edict, and you need to get involved and say, we want some buy-in, we want some accountability on the part of our legislature. And so they'll be looking at backing a couple of bills that will bring the separation of powers bill, and also the bill David Brock Smith's, which is being discussed right now. So they're looking at more of a concerted approach, a more aggressive approach, but they are, again, they were talking about the fact that it costs thousands of dollars to buy a tent. Somebody was talking about $34,000 to set up their patio, $14,000 for a tent, $200 a week on propane. The wind blows the tent down. They feel like they're pumping air into a leaky dinghy, and they're just struggling. So whatever the county can do legally, I think we need to be the point of the spear on this one, and address these issues with our restaurants. Also been working with a broadband project, which we can talk about once we have more information on it, with the provider that worked in Polk County. And also there is a legislative concept that is almost completed, and this has to do with limiting cannabis processing. We know that the board really struggled with having to approve a cannabis processing facility on the Chehalem Mountain, which had some serious fires this summer, and they're really concerned. So perhaps this could address those types of facilities. And also working with the chief in the West Valley on some of the issues associated with their ASA, their ambulance service area. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap up unless anyone else has anything else to share. Commissioner.
Chair, I just had a quick point that I forgot, which I'm fascinated by this discussion, but Commissioner Minty Morris brought up the fact that the vaccines are having a positive impact on the hospitalization levels. And so hospitalization usage and levels should be taken into account when it comes to establishing our risk level. And the governor did admit that the vaccines are not why we're seeing a drop in case counts. And so it sort of reinforced the point that we should be taking other metrics into account for these risk levels. And so I'm hoping that they take that to heart, because it was a very strong message that was communicated from a lot of commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ken, did you have something?
One item I forgot to mention to the board during the calendaring session, without getting into the details, but HHS currently has a project or proposal that they've been working on, and we're at a point where it looks like we are going to need to schedule an executive session, possibly for next week, to discuss property. And I just wanted to, if the board was okay, I'd like to schedule it for either immediately after or immediately before next week's formal.
That sounds good. Perhaps we could schedule it for afterwards. Would that work?
I'm trying to navigate that, and then also with how busy crazy Lindsay Manfred's schedule has been, I just want to confirm that she's available, because she's going to be, her and Christian will be leading the discussions on it. So I want to make sure she's available and not running up against other things that may already be on her schedule. So I'll work on that for it. We'll target immediately after formal session for next week as a starting point.
Unless, of course, it's more convenient for her to do it before, so we'll wait for that. Okay, thank you,
Chair,
Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Bershaw.
I think I have county college next week. So that's every day in the entire afternoon starting at 1 o'clock. So I don't know if that factors in, but that might be an issue for me. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make sure that this works for Commissioner Bershauer as well.
Well, I'm hoping we'll be done by 1.
Okay.
That's a really good point. And I was going to say, the flexibility component, I can make it work.
Either
But let's
way.
just make sure. Yeah, exactly. I do know that I have things on Wednesday, so hopefully just Thursday.
All right.
I did want to know, I apologize. Oh, wait, are we done with? Ken is done. Okay, great. I received from our bypass lobbyist a note that the current version of I think it's the federal COVID relief bill, the one that's in negotiation, it says that our county would receive 21 million. And I don't know whether that's county government or schools, public health, transit, but that's a big number that probably we should find out more about. So there's that. I did also want to put in a plug for the Yamhill County Public Health now has a fillable form that if you fill it out and submit it to Public Health, and it's available in English and Spanish, you'll get on the list for eligibility so that they will reach out to you when the appointments are available. And it's primarily for phase 1A for our elders, and then for educators right now.
Right, and we have to make it clear that getting your name on the list does not mean getting your name on the list to sign up for an appointment. It's to be eligible, and then you'll get called.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up. Well, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we can go ahead and adjourn, and everybody be safe, drive safely, and we'll look forward to seeing you